Hey, welcome everyone to today's presentation. So once again, my name is David Mainville, and the goal of today's presentation is to share with you all a scalable framework for assessing operational resilience in your organization. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on why operational resilience is important. I assume that if you're on this call today, you recognize the importance of operational resilience, the regulatory requirements, the operational requirements, the financial implications of not being resilient, or even the PR implications. So we're not really going to focus on that. What I really want to talk about today is how you can assess operational resilience in your organization. And the things we're going to cover today is why it's important. So first of all, you need clarity and confidence. You need to know where you stand and what to do next. And what I'm going to show today is a framework that can really give you an approach that includes expert guidance along with framework aligned assessments so you can really get a good perspective of where you are. The other important thing is speed and consistency. Organizations, especially large organizations with many compliance requirements, for example, need to self-assess themselves on a regular basis so that they know they're in a good shape for when they're audited. And for that, they need tools that allow them to launch very fast and repeatable assessments using built-in content, no spreadsheets, no guesswork, a way that can provide consistent results with low overhead. The other thing that's really important when you have an assessment is not only to know where you are, but where you need to go. And we're going to cover some ways through this framework that you can produce AI-enhanced reports that include such things as heat maps, risk scores, recommendations, and roadmaps that leadership can act on. So again, the assessments are very, very important, not only for knowing where you are, but where you need to go. And on that note, I have a real simple question. Would you embark on an expedition without a map? Now, one of my hobbies is actually going hiking, and I've gone to a lot of great places around the world. But one of the most important things about a hike is preparation and navigation. And I would never embark on any kind of expedition without a map, nor would I embark on a project as important as operational resilience without a map. Every journey towards compliance, it must begin with a map. And the map is your assessment. The assessment tells you where you are today, where you need to go, and all the pitfalls and risks that you might face along the way. Now, New York Stock Exchange. So we went in and were able to identify risks that they had from an operational perspective that might affect the day-to-day operations of that environment. And over the years, we did many, many assessments across many different organizations, helping them beef up their operational resilience. So this is all coming from experience. And you can't beef up operational resilience unless you know the issues that you're facing today. The other thing about assessments, especially if you're in a large organization like a financial services organization operating around the world, how important it is to have regular assessments, because these assessments leave a trail of where have you been so that you can demonstrate progress moving forward. And conducting these types of assessments, if you're using external resources, can be very expensive. So what we want to talk about today is a low overhead, very effective way of doing it on a repeatable basis. Multiple paths, one destination. Now, there's a lot of ways to get to operational resilience, but in the end, operational resilience is everything. Whether it's cyber resilience, whether it's just infrastructure resilience, business continuity, how you manage your supply chains, all of those things play a huge role in the resilience of your organization. And there's many different ways that you can assess where you are with operational resilience. And today we face literally an alphabet soup of frameworks. We have things like DORA, the Digital Operation Resilience Act from the European Union, ISO 27002, the NIST cybersecurity framework, PCI for the payment card assessments, SOC 2 if you're a service provider. The list goes on and on. There's HIPAA, there's HITRUST, there's the CSA, the Cloud Security Assessment. So all of these things are out there, and people are facing all of these different types of assessments. It's a real mess. But underneath it all, they are leading to the same destination. And I know this because I've looked at all of these frameworks over the years, whether it's ITSM, whether it's COVID, or any of these frameworks, they're all looking at things, the same things, from a slightly different perspective. But underlying it all is really they're trying to improve the resilience in the organization. And the other thing I've learned over the years is that with all of these frameworks, it's people and processes that are your guides. Technology is great. There's an over reliance, however, on technology in most organizations to keep yourself safe and resilient. When you hear about a major security breach or a major operational disruption that's facing, a large organization, and there's been a number of those over the last, few months and years. These are big organizations with all the tools and the technology to keep themselves resilient. So why do they fail? Well, in the research that I've done, it almost always comes down to people and process. It's not because they didn't have a firewall. It's because they didn't update the firewall rules. It's not because they didn't have, a disaster recovery plan. It's because they've never tested it. So these are the things that always get you in the end. So people and processes are your guide. And no matter what path you follow, whether you're trying to prove yourself to be resilient against DORA or ISO 27002, it's the people and process who take the actions that are going to make you resilient. So a failure to assess your people and processes is a huge gap that most organizations have because they're looking too much from a technology perspective or even just a control objective, but they're really not looking at the underlying people and processes that basically drive resilience in an organization. So there's a real challenge here that we face today. There's multiple frameworks, overlapping demands, and more importantly, limited resources. Everyone's operating very tight these days. And to do these types of assessments in the organization, it can be very, very time consuming. And also, if you're bringing in outside resources to do these assessments, it can be very, very expensive. So how do you deal with this challenge? Well, let's take the case of a large financial services organization, maybe one that's in the insurance industry. Well, that organization may need to align with several regulatory and control frameworks. If they're operating in the European Union, DORA comes into play, the Digital Operation Resilience Act. And there's penalties if you don't provide the resilience under that act. If you're operating perhaps in North America, maybe you're taking a NIST cybersecurity framework perspective. If you're a service provider and providing services, the same financial services organization may also be a service provider, then SOC 2 comes into play, which looks at the capabilities of providing services. Again, in Europe, it might be ISO 27001 or ISO 27002. If you're collecting payments through the internet, PCI comes into play. If you're an insurance company and operating in the US, HIPAA now plays a part because you have to protect people's healthcare data. So this is a lot of stuff that you got to assess. And each of these different frameworks brings its own reporting requirements, risk expectations, and assessment models. But you know what? If you really start looking at these, underlying them are very similar questions. What are you doing about assessing risk and identifying risk? What are you doing about auditing and managing and keeping an inventory of your third-party suppliers? What are you doing from an infrastructure perspective in terms of mobile device management and firewalls and monitoring and detection? All of these things that support resilience for those different frameworks tend to be common across all. And I've done the crosswalks. I've looked at the different frameworks and the different requirements underneath and see just how common they can be. And preparing for these assessments in an organization can be extremely time consuming. Again, you might be assessed from an outside firm because of these regulatory requirements, but internally, you don't want to fail the assessment. You want to be prepared for it. So you have to prepare for these assessments by ensuring your processes, your technology, your people, your policies, all of these things are in order. So again, that's a real challenge, dealing with multiple frameworks, all the different reporting and requirements, and of course, the time constraints that you have in an organization, and perhaps the financial constraints as well of doing all of this. So it's a big challenge. That's where Navvia's operational resilience assessment platform comes in. It's fast, it's guided, and it's backed by experts. Within the Navvia platform, we've designed something that can specifically help organizations assess and improve digital operational resilience, whether it's DORA, the NIST CSF, IT service management, and more. We cover a variety of these frameworks. It combines pre-built framework aligned content. So we've looked at the frameworks. We have very specific questions about those different frameworks. We created an automation platform that can help distribute questionnaires across your organization. We can score those questionnaires against the frameworks, and then through the AI enhanced reporting, develop recommendations and a roadmap to close those gaps. The other thing the platform does is empowers your team. It allows you to do your own self-assessment so you can be prepared. And we do this through built-in guidance. We have a great, knowledge base of guidance. We provide expert training and support. And when I talk about support, I'm saying give us a project manager and we can help you use our tool and our capabilities to do your own assessments without the added cost of that might be, of trying to, wrangle multiple spreadsheets or bringing in external resources. It also provides you with a repeatable methodology. So you can assess against DORA, you can assess against NIST, you can do it multiple times, always ensuring that you're in a state of readiness. The other thing, it can be used by both internal teams. So again, if you're a large financial services organization, a healthcare organization, you can do your own self-assessments to give you the peace of mind of knowing where you're at. But it can also be used by consulting organizations to improve their internal practice to deliver services to their clients and to make, to give you a tool that makes you more productive and more effective in delivering services. One of the powerful things about the tool is it provides a 360-degree view. So in one example, let's look at DORA, which is the Digital Operations Resilience Act. Let's look at the NIST cybersecurity framework, and let's look at IT service management. This will allow you to see risk and resilience from every angle. So DORA brings the regulatory backbone. So if you're familiar with DORA, you'll recognize that there's 5 pillars in DORA. It looks at things like incident reporting, resilience testing, third-party oversight, threat intelligence sharing, and also the risk and security of your infrastructure. So DORA is looking at it from a legal regulatory type of lens. NIST adds another layer to it, cybersecurity depth. And again, if you're familiar with NIST, you know about identify your risks, identify your assets. It goes into protecting those assets, detecting threats against those assets, responding to threats against those assets, and recovering from those threats right across your entire digital operation landscape. So again, looking at similar things, slightly different focus. But more importantly, and something I think we do differently than anybody else, is we take a process perspective as well. So underneath these frameworks like DORA, NIST, HIPAA, is a collection of IT service management processes. Things like change management, incident management, problem management, service continuity management, IT asset management, software development, the list goes on and on. And we've created actually in our product a crosswalk that shows how these processes connect to those frameworks. The thing is, it's one thing to come in as an auditor and said, show me a sample of your inventory, show me the latest inventory you have. But it's more important to show that you have a repeatable, well-managed, well-operated process for ensuring that inventory is accurate. So we look at it from a regulatory, a cybersecurity, and an operational perspective, really giving you that 360-degree view. And again, with the addition of other frameworks, you can take different perspectives like a COVID assessment or just a pure ITSM assessment, mix and match. So what are you going to achieve with this platform? Well, it's your map, your guide, and your path to resilience. You can see your position clearly. Using these assessments on a regular basis can give you enhanced visibility across multiple frameworks, whether it's DORA, NIST, and ITSM. And if you're operating in an environment where you are dealing with multiple frameworks, this can be a great benefit. You can spot risks quickly. So through the standard reports that we have and the AI enhanced reporting, you can, and also I want to really point out something here. This isn't just, putting some results into ChatGPT and say, hey, give me your analysis of it. We've taken our experience over the many, many years that we've been consultants and put them into playbooks that guide our AI. So the AI enhanced reporting, because it's using real data that's collected and we enhance it through our playbooks, can help you pinpoint what matters for both executives and auditors alike. So you can see your position where you are, you can spot real risks and threats, but you can also reduce cost and effort by eliminating those spreadsheets, eliminating the duplication and manual work across all these different types of assessments. The other thing is it allows you to move with confidence because it provides tailored recommendations, roadmaps, and accountable actions. So who needs to deal with, here's the issues. Who needs to deal with the issues? What's the priority of the issues? And all of those issues are mapped back to the actual findings from the assessments. So it's not generic, it's actually targeted. It also helps you work as a team because Navvia provides you the training and expert support. But now it's also giving your team the capability to do these assessments on a regular basis. Just think how much productivity you'll gain from that, how much cost savings you'll gain from that, because you'll be able to do it with our support, our technology, but working in conjunction with the people in your organization. So, for example, give us a project manager and we'll help you identify the right people, the right groups, who to target with what, and then help you interpret those results and present it in a cohesive manner to the executives so that you really have an executive ready report that they can take action on. The nice thing about Navvia, it's built for various groups of people. It's purpose built for those groups as well. Anyone who's responsible for resilience, like your chief information security officer, your chief risk officer, it gives them the strategic visibility into digital resilience, compliance readiness, and operational risk. So again, your internal teams can pull these assessments together and provide these results to these key individuals. It's great for audit and risk professionals that need to leverage structured evidence-backed assessments with full traceability and reporting. And it's great for advisory teams and consulting organizations who need to deliver a scalable, repeatable set of assessments to clients by leveraging the built-in content, dashboards, and AI generated reports. So why don't we take a moment to go into the product and I'll show you how all this comes together and then we can wrap the session up. Again, today's session's a very focused 20-minute session. If you need to get more information or take a deeper dive into the product, we'll provide you with some contact information so you can set up a demo of your own. So let's take a look at the product here. So first of all, the Navvia platform, we're talking about assessment today, but there's another very important capability of our product, which is once you have an assessment done and you need to mitigate some of the findings, we actually have a full process modeling tool built into Navvia that allows you to create process documentation, procedural and training information. It allows you to capture technical requirements and user stories for implementing processes and tools. And we have a whole library of those processes that support operational resilience. So for example, we have a risk management process in Navvia that you can take and tweak to your organization, or an asset management or a service continuity management process. And each of these processes, like supplier management, are fully, each of these processes are fully documented. Let me just went to the wrong section here. Each of these processes are fully documented with all of the activities and tasks required to support that particular process. Like in the risk management process, establishing a risk framework and culture, identifying risk and assessing that risk, responding and mitigating to risk, monitoring and reporting against risk, and the variety of how you document risk and how you review and optimize the process to support it. And it's not only just the workflow diagrams, but it's the detailed activities, roles, responsibilities, RACI charts. Again, I don't want to get too much into this aspect of it, but just be aware that we do have all the process documentation to mitigate risks once they're uncovered. The important thing is surveying your organization for risks. And for that, we have the ability to create various assessment projects. So I have a DORA project here with very specific questionnaires against the DORA pillars. So incident reporting, digital operation risk testing, ICT, security risk management, third-party risk management, information sharing. Or we can take a look at a standalone NIST assessment where we have detect, govern, identify, protect, recover, and respond. Or we can mix and match these various frameworks like I did here with the operational resilience assessment, where I'm looking at things through both a NIST and an IT service management lens. So very, very powerful in that we support multiple frameworks, but also you can mix and match to get that 360-degree view. And these assessment questionnaires are very, very detailed, and they're aligned specifically to the frameworks. So this questionnaire on NIST Identify looks at various categories like asset management or risk assessment or improvement. So we have various questions, detailed questions that provide the question, the context of the question, and things to consider. These are editable. You can work with those questionnaires yourself, and they're all scored on a very consistent scale from not achieved to fully achieved. We also capture comments people have on every one of the questionnaires. So again, we have these questionnaires that you can load into a project. You can identify groups in your organization. So it's important to get a cross-section of different perspectives. So you can talk to perhaps the InfoSec people, the GRC people, your service management team, your internal audit team, and then map various questionnaires to the different participants. So you can target specific people in specific groups with specific questionnaires. Track everything through your email messages, launch, send reminders and notifications, track things on a dashboard. You can even look at response attachments. So if you want evidence, you can request evidence for each of the questions that you ask, and you can have those pieces of evidence stored as either files or links that you can basically reference. And then a whole collection of reports that allow you to drill into such things. For example, here's how we're doing against the NIST functions. But not only do we see an aggregated view, we can drill in and see the view from different groups. So how did the GRC team assess those same capabilities? The other things we can do is look at things like a NIST heat map. So here are the categories within NIST. I believe there's 26 categories, if memory serves me, and 106 subcategories. So you can see on a heat map basis exactly where you're not performing, partially performing, largely performing, or fully performing, so you can drill in. We also have reports that allow you to drill right down into survey comments, so you get that human perspective. So if I want to see what people said about change management, I can get all of the results by person and by the comments they provided. So there's a ton of data here that you can use. And as a consulting organization, we became very good at interpreting that data. So we took that expertise and brought a whole other perspective using the AI generated reports and also using our playbooks to guide it. And that would look something like this. So this is an assessment I did against the DORA pillars and the IT service management processes. This is fully branded. When it comes out of Navvia, it would have your logo, your company's name, the name of the project, the date, etc. It provides you with a lot of detailed information. There's a confidentiality notice. There's an executive summary, a two-page executive summary that just highlights the methodology, the approach, and the key findings and the roadmap. There's another section that goes a little deeper into the approach to provide or to demonstrate that you were thorough in how you did the assessment. The key findings look at all of the different aspects, the DORA, the ITSM processes from different perspectives. We even look at stakeholder feedback. All those comments that come in are analyzed through sentiment analysis to look at where there's positive or negative interpretation of how those functions are operating in the organization. We analyze everything and give you a step-by-step analysis. We provide the recommendations and a roadmap that basically goes forward. So for example, you can see here in the summary, let me just bring this. Sorry, let me just bring this into a single page. Here we go. So basically, grounded in evidence from stakeholder feedback and quantitative scores, it surfaced systemic weaknesses and strengths across the DORA pillars. It comes in and basically gives you the recommendations and the short, medium, and long-term actions that need to be taken. This is backed up by the full methodology, which looks at the pillars and processes that were analyzed, the scope of the assessment, the group, the different groups that were assessed, the participants within the groups. We show the different scoring across the pillars with an interpretation of what those scores mean. We look at things like group variability and how different groups scored the different, in this case, the DORA pillars, and what the standard deviation and group variability was across the scores. So a lot of detail. We get into detailed recommendations. So for example, for this particular question in incident response, in the area of detection and classification, we looked at the integration of incident detection systems with third-party or external service providers. We considered the testing of external incident notification requirements. Comments revealed complications in managing service level expectations, reliance on APIs for integration, and variability in communication methods across team. The average score of 39.7 and partially done indicate that third-party detection is partially implemented with inconsistencies in execution and communication. Because the questions are so focused, the results that come back and the interpretation are also focused. And these findings that are surfaced are what feed the recommendations. So later down in the report, when we start building out the different recommendations, and I'm just scratching the surface here today, but later on when we basically that's the analysis section. Sorry, let me just get to the recommendations. So one of the recommendations might be around standardizing centralized risk management processes. We actually tied everything back to findings. So these are different questions within the assessment. We talk about the implications, what needs to be done to implement the recommendation, the risks that if you don't implement the recommendation, and the benefits that you would achieve. So all the recommendations are presented around this model that we call FRIBS, findings, implementation, recommendation, and benefit. And then we also provide a roadmap, and in the appendix, a lot of really detailed results against every single questionnaire, where you can focus on what's not done, partially done, largely done, and fully done. So all of this together takes a lot of burden off of you. We have a tool that can distribute the questionnaires to help you target. We have support that helps you identify the right people. Lots of reports that let you demonstrate the results in a variety of different ways, whether it's qualitative data such as scores or quantitative data such as qualitative data such as sentiment analysis or quantitative data such as scores, heat maps to back everything up. Really, really, really detailed. And these reports can be edited after the fact just to tailor them specifically to your needs. But producing one of these reports once the results are done is a matter of a few minutes. And it just basically uses our playbooks and the AI to really give you some targeted recommendations and a roadmap to take you forward. just to sort of summarize, what this really does is give you a map, becomes your guide, and gives you that path to resilience. You can see your position clearly across the different frameworks because you can mix and match. You can do dedicated assessments or mix and match the assessments. You can spot those real risks fast because you don't have to compile these reports. We've got a lot of tools and technology that can compile the information for you against our experience of being consultants. This is a real cost-cutting method of doing it. It can eliminate manual effort, minimize duplication across those different frameworks you might have to assess against, and it really takes a lot of the manual work out of the equation. So you can do this in a very cost-effective way. It makes you move with confidence because of the tailored recommendations and the roadmaps. And again, it gives you the support, training, and guidance you need to get these assessments done in a sort of a self, do them yourself kind of way so you can prepare for the auditors when they come in. So it really gives you visibility into your weaknesses so you can improve resilience and prepare yourself for those audits. All right, well, that's basically what I wanted to cover here today. I'll stick around for a while and ask any questions. But what I want to do now is just let you know that if you'd like to see a deeper dive into the product, we can schedule a much deeper, more focused demonstration. You just have to reach out to us at navvia.com/contact or respond to the email that's going to go out a little bit later with the recording and the slides. Respond to that or reach out at our contact information, and we'd be happy to set up a demonstration for you and your team. So on that note, I just want to thank you all for your presence here today, and I wish you all the best. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to take those.
Thank you, David. We don't have any questions, but we have a comment actually in the comment section from Eckhart.
What? Sorry, what was that?
Oh, we have in the comment section, we have a comment from Eckhart.
So what is that?
So let me see.
Sorry about that. I didn't have the comments. I didn't have those sections.
Oh, you don't have the
on my screen,
section.
Catherine.
Okay, let me go and I'm going to put it in the.
Oh, so for Europe, DORA's, I see the comment now. So for Europe, DORA is affecting service providers as well. Financial entities have to integrate their risk, including policies, contracts, and measures for their vendors as well. Exactly. And that's why I think combining DORA aligned pillar questionnaires with the underlying service management processes that support it and having a crosswalk between how those processes support those requirements is a very, very effective way for an organization to demonstrate how service providers are supporting the DORA requirements. We have a question here around the platform. Does it produce an external audit report or an internal audit report? This is primarily designed to be an internal audit report for preparation. However, if you happen to be a service provider, you can frame this as your audit report. So again, we go down into all of the individual findings. So the tool produces all of the findings and interprets those findings. So you could frame it as if you're a service provider, you can frame it as your audit of the organization. But it's really designed as a tool for organizations to do their own assessments against the requirements or for a consulting organization to do assessments on behalf of their customers. And that's really the focus. It's really looking, are you meeting those underlying requirements? So there's a question about how does the app collect all of the input about the specific risks of a company, possible mitigation, and more. So it's really done through a collection of questionnaires that we have developed. And when I started out the presentation, I talked about how all of these different frameworks, the alphabet soup of frameworks, I like to call it, are all relying on the same underlying IT service management processes. Everyone's asking about, do you have recovery plans? More importantly, do you have a business continuity management process, and how are you executing that process? We gather the information through questionnaires. These questionnaires are sent to different stakeholder groups and individuals that we can help you identify as part of the free service offering that we provide with the tool. It's by collecting the information from these folks through these very targeted questionnaires and questions that we identify the risks. We've created playbooks that prioritize these risks. So, I mean, everything can be a finding, but you really only want to act on the important findings first. And we have playbooks that help prioritize the findings, surface those findings that are most important based on priorities. So in all of these processes, some are more important than others. I'll give you an example. If you don't have good or we call it asset management. If you don't have good asset management, you don't even know what you have to protect. How could you protect it if you don't know you have it? So good asset management and good risk management. So what are my assets and what is the risk implication of those assets to the organization? So if you don't have a process that does that, everything else is on shaky ground. So that's just an example of how we prioritize and look at things. So the tool will send out the questionnaires. Our playbooks help with the prioritization. They surface the right recommendations, and then we interpret those recommendations and we interpret those findings and provide recommendations to mitigate them. So again, it's by talking to people. And that's something I mentioned at the very beginning of this presentation. Too many organizations purely rely on having firewalls and mobile device management and doing their penetration tests. But if you're not out there talking to people, and if you're not out there looking at the processes people are performing, that's a gap, a huge gap. So how does the app support and collaborate with an audit? It's because of the alignment, because one of the questions was, how do we support an audit? For example, an ISO 27000 and K. Because we've done these crosswalks between all the service management processes in virtually all of these frameworks, and actually, if we want to take this offline at some point, I'd be happy to go deeper with you. We've created these crosswalks between the various frameworks. So we know an ISO 27000 and K looks at specific domains or areas. We also know to support those domains and areas, you need the right service management processes. So by scoring the processes that support those various domains and collecting the evidence of compliance, that's how we can support an audit. All right, that seems to be all the questions for this time. I want to thank you all for your time today. I'd be happy to take a deeper dive with any of you, but I just want to wrap it up by saying this is probably one of the most effective, cost-effective, and time-saving ways to perform internal audits in an organization, or if you're a consulting organization, help perform audits on behalf of your clients. I want to thank you all for attending and have a great afternoon.